Welcome to my YouTube knitting podcast. My name is Andrea Gaughan and I'm a knitwear designer based in Asheville, North Carolina. And this is my monthly knitting podcast where I share what I've been knitting on over the past month. Today I have two newly finished projects since last time, one of which I am wearing and I'll tell you all about, and another was nearly finished last time but is actually complete now. And then I have 4 whips I'm going to show you. 2 I think were whips last month when I filmed, and I think 2 are new. One of them I just cast on less than a week ago, so that one's very new. But I'm going to try to make this a bit on the shorter side. I'm going to aim for about a half hour. I did not start a timer, so we're going to feel it out, but I'm going to try not to talk about anything for too long because that will go right into the first thing I want to talk about, which is I have some exciting personal news, which is that I am doing an artist residency for the next 2 weeks and I am leaving for that tomorrow. So I'm today kind of trying to wrap up everything I want to make sure I get done before I leave for that. And one of those things is filming a podcast. But I also want to kind of start packing up some things to bring and then just leave out like one project to work on tonight before I leave tomorrow. But I'm really excited for that. I kind of felt like it was a long shot when I was applying for this artist residency because knitting is a more unconventional art form, I'll say, in that I strongly believe that knitting and all fiber arts are absolutely art forms and anyone who does them is an artist, but I definitely consider myself a designer and a crafter foremost. I consider myself an artist, but that's not like a title I'm very attached to or anything. But this artist retreat strongly emphasized artists of any medium, and I think it was actually originally a writer's retreat. It's very, or residency. It's very focused on writers, but also anyone of any art medium is allowed to apply. And the emphasis on any medium gave me the bravery to apply and I got accepted and I'm very excited. I'm gonna wait till after I'm done to share the name of it and everything and where I'm gonna be. But it's 2 weeks long and yeah. So I'm just gonna talk a minute about what my kind of goals for it are, and then I could do like a check-in next month to see how it actually went. But I love getting to do design for my job, but since I am trying to make designing a business and a job, a lot of days I'm focused on like, what content do I need to make? What deadlines do I have to get patterns out on a schedule I want? And I'm very like focused on these things that are not the actual making the designs. And I have no shortage of design ideas. I have a notebook where I keep my ideas. But having the time to actually start exploring those ideas and actually beginning to swatch and think about the concrete details of how the design is going to be executed is something that I always feel like I'm not leaving enough time for. And I try to make time for it, but it just, like, if I have an idea I want to swatch and it's getting towards the end of the day and I don't have time for a lot of stuff left, that's a lot of times the thing that doesn't get done. But that is one of the most fun, enjoyable parts of the process, is exploring different ideas, seeing how they're going to work out. So that is my main goal for those 2 weeks, is to just spend a lot of time swatching and playing with different design ideas I've had. And I hope to leave with my goal is to leave with like 2 or 3 new designs that I've swatched and thought out and I'm really excited about. Because I feel like there's a big jump from thinking in my head, oh, I have a vision of this, I think it would be really good, and then starting to actually work out the starting details. What yarn is it going to be in? What kind of gauge is it going to have? What's the stitch pattern? And swatching that, and either just like a square swatch for a really basic sweater or swatching out details like on something like this, seeing how everything actually interacts in real life. And a lot of times I'm not as excited about an idea after I kind of get it going. So I want to have the opportunity to have lots of time to play around with ideas and have it be okay if some of them don't pan out as much. And basically I want to try out enough ideas so that I can really be extra selective about continuing through with the ones I'm really excited about, instead of feeling like if I have more limited time, that if I've already spent a bunch of time swatching on something and like starting to run numbers or even starting to knit my sample, like I have to make that whole pattern because I've already invested so much time in it. So anyway, that is what I'm hoping to focus on for the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to be putting like an out of office email and not, I'll probably check email a couple times, but not be doing like regular email stuff. And I'll see, I'm gonna see if I'm like feeling excited about sharing a bit of what I'm working on, or outfits or something like that. I might be on Instagram, or I might just see if I'm like not feeling like going on Instagram. I might be not doing social media as well. But stay tuned for an update next month of how it actually went. Okay, so first up, I want to talk to you about what I'm wearing, which is a pattern called Bloodroot Tee, which if you have been watching my podcast, you have heard plenty about this. This is a pattern that is now out, and we just had a 10-week knit along for it that ended at the beginning of June, and I cast this on release day as part of the knit along, and this is my third version. The original pattern has a solid version and a stripe version, but the stripe version is just 2 color stripes with a wider stripe and a thinner stripe. But as I'm making those versions, I was thinking that it would be really fun to just do like a multicolor, a little bit more zany stripe. I don't think this is like zany, but it's, you know, not like one color scheme. It's not neutral. And I thought the knit along was the perfect opportunity to give myself time to actually make another version of this top. And I did not finish during the knit along because I have so much design work that I was working on at the same time. I was really happy to be working on this, but it did not get to be my like most highly prioritized thing. But I did finish this, I think last week. It's been a little bit that it's been just sitting, after I blocked it, it's kind of just been sitting on my other desk over there. But today is actually, since blocking it, the first day I put it on, because it has already been warm, warm, warm here in North Carolina. So right now in the morning, working in my office, it feels great to wear, but most days I go on like a midday walk, and I think this is already too warm for wearing on a midday walk here, because it's been getting mid 80s at least, most days here. And I'm excited to have a reason, being the podcast, to put it on this morning, because I tried it on before blocking, but trying it on after blocking, I'm just so happy with how it turned out. And I'm really, really excited to be wearing this a lot in the fall. I think early fall, as it like starts to cool down, and then even further into the fall, this would be really nice just with like a light jacket over it. Yeah, and I'm really excited about this. I think that's all I have to say about that. And then the other thing that I finished is this tee, which I think also talked quite a bit about. This may or may not be my first sample of wild ginger. I am thinking about whether I want to call this a sample or a prototype, because I've, based on how this turned out, made quite a few changes to the pattern, and I have another version cast on. And I was originally going to make the test call for this pattern happen as soon as I finish this version, which is normally what I do. If I'm making multiple samples, I'll make the second sample during the test knit. But for this, I changed so many things, and the things that I changed are really quite minor, in that the actual result is really going to be quite similar to this. But a main thing I changed is in the back. This has shoulder shaping done with short rows. I changed it to be done with increases, and that's to make the stripes work out much more easily on the stripe version. And I also did like some little bit tweaking of neck numbers to make the neck a little bit deeper and a little bit more relaxed, because the whole tee is very relaxed. And I felt like I like a high neck. Clearly this is a very high neck. It's like a mock neck. I would say like a low mock neck. But because this is so relaxed, I felt like the high tight neck didn't seem balanced. So I made the neck a little bit looser, still high crew neck, but just not so close up. And then I made some little tweaks to how the top of the sleeve is started. If you've knit my Bloodroot tee, there's a little decrease that happens at the top where you are decreasing out the selvage stitch from the front and the back. And I kind of, this is like so minor, but I spent a bunch of time figuring this out. I figured out how I wanted that selvage stitch to be actually incorporated into the sleeve stitches so that the whole sleeve cap looks really, really nice and neat, but you don't have just the teeny bit of bunched up fabric where that decrease was. And if you're interested in those fine details, because stitches are being picked up into the fabric at the top of the sleeve, you can't just make the selvage stitch be a regular stitch, because it basically looks, since you've picked up into the selvage stitch, if the selvage stitch continues after those stitches are picked up, it basically looks like that stitch appeared out of nowhere, and it makes it kind of jagged. And a solution for that was just decreasing out that selvage stitch. But I've found a different way of dealing with it. But anyway, that's the kind of like minor little things I've been tweaking on with this, tweaking in this pattern. And I'm just not sure at this point, for someone casually looking at a photo, if it would be unfair to say that this is Wild Ginger tea if I've made that many changes. But especially looking at the front of the tee, I don't think they're going to be very major. But another thing I've thought about is that if I have time, I might even just re-knit this entire tee in this same yarn, which I already bought, which is it's a little crazy. I bought this color again because I just love this color. But an obvious thing could be just knit a solid version in another color and then I can have two versions. But I just love this color, and part of a big thing is the name. I don't know if this matters to anyone because I'm really not usually explaining why I picked the names, but I have a reason in my head for most of my patterns why I picked the name. But Wild Ginger is a wildflower that grows around here, and it's a more uncommon wildflower that I've seen, and it has a teeny little hidden maroon flower that you kind of have to even know what the plant is when you see it to peek under the leaves even to find that little maroon flower. But the color of the flower is very similar to the color of this tee. But I was thinking if I make a second version of this exact tee in this color again, but with the real new instructions, then I could actually have this first prototype version be a knitted garment that I wear more freely, because while I love wearing my knits, since I do like to show them on Instagram, and even though I take the pattern photos, a lot of times I will re-photograph them for other things, I am on the more precious side with a lot of my knits, and a lot of times I won't wear them if I'm doing anything that I think they might get messed up or dirty. So I feel like I actually am not wearing my knits nearly as much as I could if I wasn't worried about them at all. So I think it would be kind of neat to be like this was a prototype. It was a first attempt at a pattern that ended up being something a bit different. So I have free range, just wear this all the time, get it super beat up looking, not be worried what I'm doing in it. I think that might be kind of nice because I really, really like how it fits. And I'm gonna wait until, I was gonna say I'll show you how it fits, but I think I'll wait. Maybe next time I should have my second version done. Maybe I'll try them on back to back and then try to get some feedback from you all if you think it's similar enough that I should just say that this is a sample and I can take photos and maybe just do a little note that some changes were made from the maroon version, or you think this isn't really it's not fair to have this representing the pattern anymore. Anyway, that's kind of in depth on that, but that's something I've been thinking very deeply about this past month, because I never want to have something in a photo and then someone make the pattern and feel like it didn't turn out like the photo, of course. But just how, like I said, the changes are really pretty minor of what happened. So we'll see. I'll get your feedback on that later. Okay. So first thing I want to show to you is my newest whip, which I have posted on Instagram a couple days ago. So maybe you saw it there, but I have made good progress since then. I have it here on the floor. I'll show you why it's on the floor in a second. And this is this scrappy mohair sweater I'm working on. My goal color scheme for this was Earthy Rainbow, and I am very happy with the result. I feel like it's exactly what I was envisioning. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do a little pause to take a screenshot for the cover photo. Because I always forget to take an actual photo for the cover of my podcast on YouTube. And so I'm always trying to find the screen grab that looks the least chaotic. And they pretty much always look chaotic. So maybe that one will look a little less chaotic than usual. But I have all the yarns I chose out of my stash on a tray here that I'll show you in a moment. As I was going through, I was trying to get the full range of rainbow colors, but try to keep them all cohesive, because I felt like it was pretty easy for it to just look so wild and there's like no connection or theme between the colors at all once I'm going for rainbow. So I tried to go for yarns that had like a more earthy type tone to them, so that I could go with tons of different colors and still feel like it's not too wild looking. There's some like cohesion between them. And I decided for the scrappy stripes to match the two shoulders so that it kind of looks like with the neck it was cut out of one piece of fabric, but I did not match the front and the back. The front and the back are different, and I'm not going to match the sleeves. So the reason I am knitting this is for a knit along that's happening right now. It's called Summer Scrap Along. And it is actually just generally a make along, because you could also crochet or sew, or we even had someone ask if a spinning project would count. And we said, yes, it counts. The whole point is to do a form of crafting fiber arts that uses up materials you already have in a creative way. So what I was mainly envisioning is lots of scrappy projects with colorful leftovers from previous projects. But we're also having it include just using up yarn that's been sitting in your stash instead of buying something new, to use what you already have. So if you have a sweater quantity of something, that's totally fine to just do a one color version. If it's using up something that you already have, because I know me, like a problem for me, like I know for a lot of knitters, is that there's always just so many exciting things you could get, and new colors being released, and checking out new yarn shops and seeing new projects that give you new inspiration, and it can be really easy to always want new. So the general point of this make along is to just look at what you already have in your craft stash and make something beautiful out of it. So we said that you do not have to use exclusively scrap/stash yarn, because I did buy yarn for this project. But a big thing for me is I really like colorful, scrappy things, but I also feel like I can feel if something's too chaotic looking, I just know I won't wear it. Like, I like for there to be colorfulness, but some kind of cohesion that brings it together, that makes it feel intentional in a way, I guess. So definitely trying to stick to like earthy tones, did that here. But I also wanted to bring all the colors together even more by using a same color mohair throughout. And this gives like kind of a marley vibe and kind of pulls everything to an extra soft color. So I did buy mohair to go with this, but then all of the fingering weight yarn that's being held with the mohair is either leftover from previous projects or single skeins I had in my stash. I do actually have an abnormally large amount of single skeins in my stash because I really like to, if I'm at a yarn festival or traveling and go to a yarn shop and I see a yarn I'm interested in trying out, I like to get a skein of it so I have it available to swatch ideas before then settling on it and either buying a sweater quantity or project quantity, or asking for yarn support from the yarn company or yarn dyer. I want to be sure that I've trialed the idea and the yarn and really love it first. So I do have a lot of single skeins that I have purchased for that purpose. And let me see here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 17 colors going for this, which is a lot, but I feel like it's enough to really make it feel scrappy because like I have a couple different greens, a couple different reds, a couple different yellows. Instead of just having like one yellow, one red, I feel like it really gives that scrappy look. And I have a tray that I have all these colors out on that my partner made for me years ago when we lived in a very tiny house in Florida, and it was hard to have any kind of space that I could put my knitting out on. So this is like dedicated, made for me to be a knitting project tray, and it's really beautiful. Let's see how good I can show it to you. But space is not quite as limited in the house we live in now, although it's still a very small house. So I really don't use this as much, but it's been, I can't really tilt it to show you, but hopefully you can see it is big and it's great for moving around. I literally had this in bed last night. We were watching some Pokemon, which is my first time as an adult watching Pokemon, but I've been having a lot of fun. And I had this in bed knitting away, and it's really awesome to be managing a large amount of yarns and keep them contained. But if you are familiar with some of my design work, I have leftover yarn from my 2 Iris samples. This is Explore Knits and Fibers Earthy Sock, which is an amazing yarn. Both of those tank tops use like a bit under 2 skeins. I mean, a bit over 1 skein, so I had nearly a full skein left of each color, I think. So that was that. This is a leftover from a leftover yarn from a project I did a very long time ago, which is the second sample of my Keone sweater, which I think is a pattern I released 4 years ago now. So I love that yarn and had not had anything I had done with it so this has been just sitting in my stash for 4 years. This is leftover from one of my samples from Essential Beanie. These 2 are leftover from this tee I'm wearing right now, or I think one of these is leftover from Front Porch Pullover, one is leftover from the tee I'm wearing right now. Or maybe they're both leftover from Front Porch Pullover, got used in this tee now, and then I think that's what happened. I think I bought, well, another thing is that if I'm buying yarn for a design, I buy a lot more, I have a lot extra than a knitter would because I don't have a yardage table to work from, so I have to overestimate because I really, really don't want to be playing yarn chicken in a design, especially if it's like a hand-dyed yarn, and if I get more, the colors aren't going to match. I do not like to give myself that kind of stress for a design, so I do usually have a decent amount of yarn left over from designs. This is leftover from my maroon, oh, actually both colors of my first BLOODROOT tee were in this. Anyway, so I think all those ones were ones that were left over, and then I have a bunch of different other yarns that I bought for swatching and have not yet used for a design, but there's something I might use for a design in the future. But especially if a yarn I bought years ago for swatching, if I go to buy yarn for the actual design, I'll buy a full quantity. I won't use this skein because I'm not going to be able to get a color match years later. But I kind of feel like sometimes I have to justify the yarn I have to myself, being like, a painter wouldn't be like, oh, I have too much paint, it's such a problem. Like, I want to have as I come up with ideas, I want to have it available to me that I have different yarns to try out the ideas in. So I have a lot of yarn. That's all I'll say. But this has been the perfect project for using up a lot of this beautiful yarn. And Gabby, who is my co-host for this knit along, and I have already been talking about, like, we should just do this annually. We're all gonna eternally have scrap stash yarn left over that we want to get used up for new fun things. So I already have a lot of ideas of future scrappy projects I want to do. But let me say what this pattern is, which I don't think I have said. But my intention was for this to be a second version of my front porch pullover design, which it kind of is, but I've ended up making pretty substantial changes already to the pattern. One, I feel like I can't not do that. Like, I'm just always, I don't know. When I write a pattern, I follow my own instructions, but I like making changes. I like doing my own thing. That's why I'm designing. But the way front porch pullover is written, there's short rows in the back and in the shoulders so that the shoulder seam is directly on top of the shoulders. And the front and the back are symmetric in that line of shaping. But that doesn't really work super well with scrappy stripes. Excuse me. So I moved all the short rows to the back. I did twice as many short rows all in the back. And I kind of changed how I started the short rows so that you wouldn't see where that turn in the short rows was, and there's like a really neat transition between the back shoulder shaping and the front. So I don't know how fair it is to call this front porch pullover anymore, even though the fit is going to be very similar, because I did basically change majority of the yoke numbers in this. But if people are interested in it, I think I might do like an extra document for front porch pullover when it's downloaded, or that's available for download for people who already have it if they want to make the same changes I did, because it's not exactly like an entirely new pattern, but it does have very different numbers than that pattern does. But anyway, I wanted to make something that I'm actually enjoying making and having fun with, so I wasn't worrying too much about being like, oh, it's not a good representative of front porch pullover anymore. It's just my fun scrappy sweater with one of my past patterns as a main guide of how I'm knitting it. And I'm having a blast. I've been really enjoying choosing which color to do next. I'm not doing any real like rules besides I'm just doing all the stripes either, I'm doing them either 2, 4, or 6 rows so that nothing is like too varied, but then the stripes are also all different widths. And I'm just, as I go, picking which color to do next, which has been part of what has been making this really, really fun to knit. I did knit some of this on the go, and I like pre-chose what colors to bring with me, and honestly I feel like that's my least favorite part because I didn't get, every time I finished a color, to look at it and then decide based on that. I kind of tried to pre-imagine like, oh, I'll bring these 5 colors and do them. And I think it turned out okay, but I feel like I'm liking the parts more where I chose each color one at a time as I went. But I've decided for myself that this is a no frogging project, so I do have one place on the back where I put 2 different colors of yellow in a row, and they're so similar, I think it looks kind of strange. It's these 2. I didn't think it would be that crazy. Now looking at them, like, obviously that didn't work out. Andrea, they're way too similar. Anyway, I'm making this a no frogging project. I'm just powering on, leaning into the chaos. So I did not frog that section, even though I thought it maybe didn't turn out as nicely as some of the other sections. But I feel like just leaning into the it's turning out how it's turning out will make the end result look really nice, because part of the look of scrappy stripes just is the chaos and unpredictability. So that is what I've been the past few days, like really just knitting on as much as I can. But I have been basically for my next designs giving myself like knit this much of it a day, then knit this much of it a day, then you can get to knit on your scrappy front porch pullover, because of course I want to keep moving forward with my design work, and that's what I'll show you now. I have these all in bags over here, which normally I have all my products in bags, and I don't usually actually use a tray that much because I normally don't really need that much space for my project. But I can't remember if this was started last month, but I am working on a second sample of my honeysuckle top in this adorable color from the Wandering Flock. This is knit up in the Wandering Flock's cotton lino. I've showed the previous version on here before. And it is a half brioche tank top with cute little bow sleeves. And this second sample, I am doing my classic knit the second sample during the test knit right now, and this is going to come out in July. Yeah, towards the end of July. And this sample is going to have straight sides instead of the A-line shaping in the first one. And I think I might make it slightly more cropped, but I'll kind of see how it goes. And it looks super teeny tiny now because this brioche is really squished in. I don't want to stretch it out too much because it might take it off the needles. But this brioche stretches out a lot with blocking. So I've really enjoyed knitting this so far, but also since I'm just on the body, it's kind of just like going round and round, one color, one stitch pattern. So I've been giving myself like do X rounds per day on this, and making progress. And then my next whip is new since last month, and it is my new version of Wild Ginger, the tea I talked to you about for so much before. And this is the stripy version. It is all scrunched up right now. I'm trying to figure out how to hold this without taking off the needles. I think it really needs to go onto the next size cord right now. I should have done that before filming. But I've talked about this pattern extensively already, but here is how this new stripy version is turning out. I'm working the yoke. This is the back. This is how the back is now shaped with increases like I told you. And working around on the yoke. And this has been very fun to knit, but it is also at the point where, since it's fingering weight, and with this construction method, you're going around all the front, back, and both sleeve stitches at the same time. It's a lot of stitches per round, so progress is feeling a bit slow. Like even if I knit for an hour on this, it doesn't seem like I've made a lot of progress. So I'm also doing right now, I'm trying to knit on this at least an hour a day and keep inching away at it. But I am really enjoying it, even though it's kind of feels a bit slow going. And then my third project is going to be my first sweater of the fall. And I think I'm about ready to start the ribbing, but I kind of paused on this because I want to try it on before starting the ribbing to make sure I like the length. And this is very wrinkly from the bag, but this is called a sweater I'm calling Hemlock Pullover. And it has these little micro one-row stripes, like my South Slope vest pattern. And then it is going to have this color. Ooh, that's weird. Focus. There you go. It's gonna have this beautiful green, deep green color for the collar, cuffs, and bottom hem. And I found on my vest that makes these stripes really pop, having that big band of a single color on the edge. Yeah, so those three, I think I've talked about those patterns quite a bit, so I won't get too much into those, but just to show you what I've been knitting on. I'm bringing all these projects with me to the knitting retreat, knitting residency. I'm envisioning, I'm losing my words. Good time to wrap it up. I'm envisioning spending it like a retreat, so I've been calling it a retreat sometimes, but with the official thing it's called is an artist residency. But I'm bringing all these projects with me. but I think I'm going to be extra just letting myself knit on whatever I'm feeling excited about, and kind of let go of my like knit a certain amount on each per day thing I've been doing at home, and then pick that back up when I get back to get them ready so that I can get the patterns out to you guys. So yeah, let's see if that was around a half hour. I suspect it was maybe a bit more. But if you made it this far, please make sure you subscribe to my channel, so then that way you can always see when I upload the next video and follow along on how all these projects are going. And then, like I said, next month I'll tell you about how my artist residency goes. Yeah, and thank you so much for sitting here and listening to me chat about my knitting. I hope you have had a nice little bit of time here. Maybe you're working on your own project or just looking for some entertainment while you do whatever you're doing in life. And I'm gonna get going and finish packing. All right, see you guys next month. Bye.